Hello and welcome to this edition of On the Record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer, and for this show we're coming to you from the Moriah Harbour Key National Park here in Exuma. Now, Exuma really represents some of the best of the Bahamas National Trust. They operate a sophisticated, efficient system of national parks here. And in this show, we're going to show you some of the great preservation and conservation work they are doing here in Exuma. We're also going to showcase some of the Bahamians who are really involved in preserving our environment. And hopefully at the end of the day, we're going to encourage you to possibly come and visit. We have a lot to show you, a lot to tell you. So stay with us. Our show gets started right on the other side of this break.
This park, with its crystal clear waters, vibrant coral reefs and lush mangrove ecosystems, displays the beauty and richness of the Bahamas' natural environment. But this paradise didn't become a protected sanctuary overnight. It was a hard-fought battle led by a passionate conservationist and local hero who understood the need to safeguard these resources for future generations. That conservationist was Basil Minnis. Minnis's journey to getting Moriah Harbour Key recognized as a national park is a remarkable story of persistence, passion, and community-driven advocacy. Born and raised in Exuma, Basil Minnis grew up surrounded by the island's natural beauty. His early experiences with wildlife ignited a lifelong passion for conservation. Inspired by his travels to other parks around the world, he knew that Exuma needed its own protected area on the mainland to safeguard this natural treasure for future generations. In the 1990s, Basil and his wife Jane began their mission to have Moriah Harbour Key designated a national park. Despite the challenges, Basil's determination paid off when he secured a meeting with then Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham during 2002. He presented his case for protecting Moriah Harbour Key, and just 1 month later, the Prime Minister announced the official designation of the area as a national park. While this marked a huge victory, the battle wasn't over. Only 1/3 of the protected area was protected. Basil and Jane continued to fight, eventually succeeding, having the full area, including Pigeon Key, added to the park in 2015. Before we hit the water to see the beauty for ourselves, we sat down with two of BNT's partners that help to make the work they do here possible. The park offers tourists an opportunity to partake in all the beauty the park has to offer while staying eco-friendly. The latest feature added to aid that mission is moorings. This is a sophisticated system that allows boats to anchor in our waters without causing damage to our seabeds and, most importantly, seagrass ecosystems. That's why we sat down with Craig Parotti of the Elizabeth Harbour Conservation Partnership. He spoke about the type of work he does with the Bahamas National Trust.
So Craig, first of all, thank you for agreeing to do this interview with us. We appreciate it. You are with an organization that's, and correct me if I'm wrong, the Elizabeth Harbour Conservation Partnership.
Yes.
Got it. All right. Good. Some days I get things right. So first of all, let's talk about the organization and what it is that you do, and in the context of your partnership with the Bahamas National Trust.
Well, we started out quite a few years ago as a pilot project to try get pump out system in the harbour because of the amount of sailboats that we get here every year. So first is a one of a kind. First one, it was like a pilot project for the Bahamas. And we got that going. And then we realized that not only do we have the sewage problem, but we also have the problem with anchors, dragging on the ground. So we furthered our interest into moorings. And just last year, we put in with partnership with BNT because of the new park. We put in our own 64 moorings, and the park put in their own moorings inside the park, and that has been a total success. And with both things that we've done, the pump out and the moorings, you know, we got a lot of backlash from the boaters. You know, oh, we don't like this, oh, this, you know, oh, are they safe, you know? But once they tried it, everything has been very good.
So for, you know, the folks who are watching who are not quite familiar with the kind of damage, you know, boats with anchors can do, and considering the volume, help us to understand some of the damage that was happening to this beautiful harbor right behind us.
Well, most of the damage would be just inexperienced captains dropping their anchor, and it's just not being anchored properly, so that when the wind would switch or pick up, their anchor would drag and just tear out all the seagrass. You know, I mean, years ago, most of this harbor was seagrass, and it's vital for the turtles and just for actually cleaning the environment.
And you know, I mean, when you talk about the environment itself, you look at the harbor and you realize how beautiful it is, which is one of the reasons why the boats come and the tourists come and the people come. But explain to us, why is it so important to maintain that environment for the, you know, for the continuation of the business and the protection of the entire area?
Well, it just seems like nowadays tourists are getting way more environmentally aware. So we just want to show that we're doing our part to try continue what we have, which is the most beautiful harbor in the Bahamas, and keep it as that.
And what kind of partnership, or what has the partnership been like with the BNT?
Well, we have helped them, like I said, to facilitate the moorings. We helped to put in their moorings for them when we did ours. Also, they have their harbor patrol boat, and we have a boat that we use to patrol our moorings and do inspections and whatever. So if they need our boat for educational purposes, we lend them our boat. If we need their boat for something quickly, you know, their park warden will help us out. If necessary, somebody else from the organization will help us out. And another thing we did before they actually got going, we built down here on Elizabeth Island an actual deck which could be used for educational purposes at the beginning of the park, with a landing so the boat could pull up to it and people could get on land without having to get in the water and everything.
So, you know, I want to thank you and encourage you. You're doing great work. It is so important because a lot of times we see this and we love it, we enjoy it, whether we come for regular boating or regattas or whatever, but we don't think that it needs protection or it needs, you know, groups like yours to ensure the preservation. So thank you for the work that you're doing, and we appreciate it. I'm sure the community is better for it, and by and large the country I should say, is much better for it. So thank you.
Yes.
We then spoke to Chairman of the Rolletown Commonage, Anya Moxey-McPhee.
So our conversation continues now here in Exuma in Georgetown with Anya from the Rolletown Commonage.
Yes, sir.
So firstly, for those of us island city folks, because, you know, people from now, so I think, you know, we're from the city. What is Rolletown Commonage for those of us who don't know?
Well, Rolletown Commonage is actually an area that was granted to former slaves of Lord John Rolle. There are 5 commonages on the island of Exuma. Rolletown is one, and I think it's either the biggest or the second largest one on the island of Exuma. So that's where the former slaves, they were given that property to cultivate, to live, and to just survive.
And you are placed in a very strategic place.
Yes.
And tell us what it is about your location that makes a partnership with the Bahamas National Trust so important.
Well, Rolletown, most of the Moriah Harbour Key, a lot of it is bordering Rolletown, you know. So we thought that the partnership with the Bahamas National Trust would be both beneficial to Rolletown, the community, as well as the BNT scene, as we're right there in the Moriah Harbour Park.
And what does that partnership mean? What is it all about, and how does it help to protect the park?
Well, currently we have partnered with the BNT to form, actually to renovate the old schoolhouse, you know, because as the years went by, we didn't need the schoolhouse anymore. Everybody got shipped to Georgetown for schooling. So they needed a place to put their office that was right in the heart of the harbor. And so we said, well, we're not using the school building, so we can partner with you to use that. You can utilize it for your office and also a place to educate persons like the school children. And then they inquired about putting a conch hatchery in Rolletown, and we were like, oh, that sounds like an awesome idea. Let's go for it. So now that's what we're trying to establish, the conch hatchery.
Is this partnership helping to create opportunities as well within the community?
Yes, it is, because with the hatchery, they have some little internships, and so that's where the younger persons in the community, because they give it to the community first, which I do appreciate, they have the opportunity to actually come in with BNT and partner with them and see how it is to be more conscious with the environment. And during the summertime, why not earn a little cash for when it's time to go back to school?
There's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. What we're looking for is to, like, eco-tourists now, tourists, everything is right now ecotourism. So we're going to capitalize with that and try to get some traffic where persons coming in to understand the importance of conserving the conch. What is a Bahamian island without conch? Coming to the Bahamas as a tourist and there's no conch, that's almost like an oxymoron, you know, the Bahamas, no conch. So we want to let people, and if we can get it with the younger persons, they'll have a better understanding and a better appreciation for the environment. And so with the conch hatchery, that's where it's basically a conch nursery. You get the eggs, you hatch it, and then at a certain stage, you put it back into the wildlife. So it'll increase the population.
Do you find, and I think you touched on it a bit, the tourists are coming looking for those experiences? They want to see what you're doing to preserve the environment. They want to learn. So do you find that a lot of visitors now are keenly interested in that kind of thing?
Yes, because I noticed that it's a lot of traffic, especially in the harbor, Moriah Harbour, and especially through Rolletown. So I think they're looking to see what are we doing to preserve this beautiful island that we have. So I think it's beneficial, and they're happy for it. And then we have the sandbar right in the Moriah Harbour. So you have weddings happening on the sandbar.
Really?
So yes, so if we
married
can
on the sandbar?
Yes,
I
it's
gotta
a
let
beautiful.
some of my friends know.
It's a beautiful space. You know, tide is low.
Really?
You have a big sandbar in the middle of the ocean. That is like wow. And so they come and they have weddings on it. They just relax. So it's in the harbor. It's a part of Rolletown, and we want to keep it going for the next generation and more generations to come.
We've got to check it out. I got at least one single lady and one married lady in my crew. Maybe one could get married and one could renew.
Yes,
All right, we'll see what
Hook me up and we'll make it happen.
Anya, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's really a good thing to see when communities are working
Yes.
along with these environmental organizations to preserve what we have. And that's so very important. So congratulations to you and your organization for partnering and recognizing the importance of the preservation of our islands and our country for future generations and of course for future visitors. So well
Yes.
done, and thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna check out that sandbar.
Yes.
All right, stay with us. We're back with more on the record right after this.
When we come back, our adventure begins in Moriah Harbour Key National Park. Stay with us. You're watching On the Record. We finally took to the water and experienced the incredible beauty of Moriah Harbour Key National Park firsthand. But we were not alone on this journey. We joined an active education tour filled with some of the island's youngest and most enthusiastic conservationists, all eager to explore and learn more about the natural treasure of this park. Our destination, Stocking Island. Leading the way was Felicia, an education officer with the Bahamas National Trust. As we cruise through the park's crystal clear waters, Felicia shares her extensive knowledge, guiding us in identifying native trees and plants while explaining their vital roles in the ecosystem. During a break from the tour, we chatted with our charismatic tour guide to learn more about the incredible education and outreach initiatives happening right here in Exuma.
All right, so we are here at the Moriah Harbour Key National Park. We've just been a part of a wonderful tour that you've done with the kids. I felt like the most uninformed person on the tour. I just want to start off with that. Well, why are these, first of all, why are these tours so important, or why are these activities, I should say, so important with kids?
It's important because they have to know that they are a part of the solution. They may be small, but they can carry this message. They can pass it on to their family members. They can go to school and they can say, this is what I learned about the casuarina tree. It might provide shade, but it also threatens the vegetation and it outcompetes the local vegetation. So they can pass this information on. So they need to feel like they're part of the solution.
These parks represent such an amazing effort by the BNT. When kids come here, you know, aside from the learning, what else do you think that they take away at the end of the day?
Even though these are our Bahamian kids, they take away the breathtaking beauty. As soon as the kids hop on the boat, oh my goodness, it's so beautiful. They acknowledge that they live in the most beautiful place in the world. And like I said, they feel a part of the solution, and they want to be the ambassadors. They want to be the ones that carry the message and say, this is what we need to do to conserve and protect our environment. Because I've been there and it's beautiful and we need to preserve this.
It's kind of crazy because we live here.
Yes.
And every time we see it, it's like, oh my God, it's so beautiful.
It is.
But in passing every day, I guess in their regular lives, they don't recognize sometimes the beauty that's around them.
That's an amazing point. That's an amazing point. But I think the kids today, they spend so much time indoors.
Yes.
On their smart devices that even though these kids live in the Family Islands, they don't get out much. They don't get outdoors much. So when they get on the boat, when they may not even have an opportunity to get on the boat to get to Stocking Islands. We might do a Rocky Shore tour right in the community of Rolletown. But just being able to observe the animals in its natural habitat, they are always in awe and always blown away, and they always learn something new.
Is the end goal also to help them to protect even the communities they live in? Because,
Correct.
you know, you talk about preservation, but we're always building, we're always tearing
Yes,
something down,
yes.
we're always encroaching, you know, onto the shore, into the water. So is a part of this to get children who eventually become adults to appreciate even that with development, they must be responsible?
I think that is exactly it. Because when I leave from this tour with BNT, I go home and I realize that we're pushing down trees, but that's a native tree. And you might want it out of the way, but did you observe that there's a nest in that tree? So can I tell my mother or father, don't push this tree down because it's a habitat. Our voices matter, their voices matter, and they're believing that. They are truly believing that.
So I also have to ask, like when the tourists come and they see these national parks, does it enhance their experience?
I think it does. I think it takes it a step further. Just acknowledging that we're more than just the swimming pigs. We're more than just a boat ride to the Keys. That this environment is it's so important to the animals and the trees. It's just so important. We're not just tree huggers. We're just really appreciating for generations to come. Because I want my children to be able to enjoy being able to come to the beach without having to walk through a narrow path because it's a no trespass sign, as the kids said. So of course, I think they acknowledge that when they come.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
You're most
And
welcome.
thank you for the tour. I really enjoyed myself. I learned a lot. I
I
pass
continue
these
to
trees
learn.
all the time in my own. I'm like, oh, that's what that is. So, thank you very much.
You're
That
most
knowledge
welcome.
is so important. I just wish more adults could get the same opportunity as
And
well.
we wish too. Now, we don't just do these experiences for school age children. We've involved stakeholders as well. We've gotten a group of local government officials on a tour before. And just like you, they're amazed at what exists. They're amazed at the ecosystems and how they're so delicate. They're amazed at how the mangroves are at home to so many juvenile species that we enjoy, like the conch and the spiny lobster. So we also encourage adults to just hop on an eco tour and educate yourself about why it's important.
Awesome. Thank you much.
You're
And
welcome.
listen, keep up the great
Thank
work. We
you.
really appreciate it. I really appreciated the tour today.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
You're welcome.
But how does one manage such a large park? We spoke to Catherine Booker. She's the BNT's program coordinator here in Exuma. In our chat, we spoke about the mission and vision of the park, how it's managed, and its initiatives.
So outside of the world famous swimming pigs and all of the wonderful things that Exuma has for tourists, this island chain is also known for its great work in helping to conserve and preserve our environment. So we're here at the Moriah Harbour Key National Park. I want to first talk about, well, first of all, thank you for agreeing to talk to us today.
Sure.
And I want to talk, first of all, about your presence in Exuma and talk about the work that the BNT does here and how significant that is for this part of the country.
Great. Well, the Bahamas National Trust has been a part of Exuma and the Exuma Keys for a long time. You know, our national park up at Waterk Wells has been around since 1958. It was one of the first marine protected areas in the world. And so this park, the Moriah Harbour Key National Park, is a relatively new park in the system of over 33 parks that we have now. So the Moriah Harbour Key National Park was really officially declared in 2002. It was expanded in 2015. And it is now an operational park. We just started hiring employees a couple of years ago. And so far we have 2 park wardens. We have an education outreach officer and myself, a program coordinator. So yeah, the Bahamas National Trust is really growing a lot in recent years. We've had a lot of great support from local, entities.
And I want to talk specifically about this park for a minute. And it's relatively new, and even in terms of the expansion. But why is this so important for this part of Exuma?
Well, this is a really unique park in that it protects a lot of really critical habitat, nursery habitat, places where really ecologically important species and economically important species, such as lobster, crawfish, conch, grouper. All of this is juvenile habitat for those species. So we really want to look at parks as a place where we can protect the babies, where they can grow up and replenish other areas around, but also provide an amazing experience for people when they come here to visit, whether it's, you're coming from New Providence or whether you're coming from Florida. This is a very intact ecosystem compared to a lot of places in the world, and we really want to preserve it and make it a showpiece for Exuma.
So when people come, are they able to also, go and experience the park, get involved and see these species in their natural habitat? So is that a part of the visitor experience as well?
Yeah, so part of what we've been really focused on in establishing this park is putting in infrastructure. So that would be things like Basil's classroom up here, a really nice outdoor classroom, cabanas on some of the really nice beaches, We've put some moorings in so that people can easily tie up, taking care of the environment and helping support the park at the same time. We have trails that we've been developing that are really, really interesting, take you to some beautiful locations where you can view a lot of different aspects of the park. So yeah.
Awesome. Now, is there a challenge between what you're trying to do to preserve the environment and those who are interested in development or using it for commercial or even other activities? I mean, you look in the harbor and you see all the activity that's happening. So is it sometimes a bit difficult when you're trying to establish and even maintain these protected areas?
Yes, of course, there is a lot of folks that either come here or are from here. It's a beautiful place. It's really, there's a lot of potential in real estate here. We can just put it that way. And sometimes that does impact this development activity, does impact the park. We like to think that there's a way to strike a balance there. There's some really good best practices that folks that are developing the coastline in particular can put into place so that it has a minimal, whatever they're doing and wanting to develop, it has a minimal impact. And that can include just, doing something as simple as leaving a buffer of vegetation on the coastline so that runoff doesn't occur, so we're not polluting with nutrients or sedimentation. But there's more people in the area also that just has an impact. So one of the things we really want to do is keep people in areas where they're not having as much of a disturbing effect on the habitat. So underwater, it's all about staying quiet and undisturbed. So trying to keep, like for example, boat traffic out of really shallow flats. We have a lot of folks that like to bonefish, for example, and we want to make sure that we're balancing the uses of those spaces.
Sure. All of this takes money, and it's not always money that's readily available. So how do you go about your fundraising? How are you able to fund a lot of these things that need to be done?
Yeah, so the Bahamas National Trust, as you may know, is a nonprofit organization. We do receive subsidy from the government. We also do a lot of our work with grant money from foundations. We've had some wonderful support recently from the Coughlin Foundation here in Exuma, and also through some global entities, Global Environment Facility. So it does take money. You gotta invest capital to get things going. Eventually, we want to have sustainable revenue that's generated through park fees and the users that are using the space. But we really want to thank and appreciate the folks that are helping get things going here.
How can Bahamians become more involved in helping to preserve as well as helping to fund the work that you do?
Well, I think across the board, we always appreciate folks that are able to donate either their time or their resources. And when I say resources, I mean, that could be a monetary donation, but it could also be some kind of useful equipment or a collaboration, So we're always looking for those opportunities. And, we want to, enhance opportunities here for local organizations and businesses to get involved. So we're working on that right now. Yeah.
All right. Well, I just want to say that, first of all, I always congratulate you all for the work that you do, because you are helping to sustain this environment and the country for future generations and for the future of the Bahamas. And so that's to be commended. And right down to the work that you're doing with the kids. That's so important, because the information is already with the next generation. And that's so very important.
Right. Yeah, it is.
We're always appreciative of that. Yeah. So thank you very much, and keep up the great work here. I know that we've got lots more to see and do while we're here, but I appreciate you, taking time out to show us this wonderful park today and give us this great experience.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We've got more on the record to come right after this.
When we come back from the break, the most beautiful sights and sounds of the Moriah Harbour Key National Park. Stay with us. You're watching on the record. As we continued our journey through the breathtaking expanse of Moriah Harbour Key National Park, we traversed the Exuma Blues, marveling at the lush forests, thriving mangroves, and awe-inspiring wildlife that call this area home. Leading the way were two trusted wardens of the Bahamas National Trust, Bradley Charlton and O'Neill Park. These dedicated gentlemen not only enforce the protection of this vast and vital ecosystem, but also play an important role in educating the local community about conservation. We took some time with Bradley, the very first warden hired to protect Moriah Harbour Key, to hear his thoughts on what it's like to be responsible for preserving such a vast and diverse park.
Okay, so we're here on Stocking Island, the famous Stocking Island. We've heard lots about it in all of our travels, but I'm happy to be here. Bradley is the park warden here with BNT. Bradley, you are the first, or you have the designation of being the first, but not the only at this point. But tell me about that experience, how you got started, and really what it was like in the beginning trying to be the warden of all of this.
Wow. As you could imagine, bringing in some level of enforcement after many years into a national park, like nobody even knew it was a park. So to start off with, it was just a daily basis or a weekly basis of raising awareness, educating the public, letting them know the intention, the plan for the area we now know as Moriah Harbour Key National Park. So for the most part, it wasn't as much enforcement as you would think. It was just a lot more education.
Sure. And so now we're about to move into another phase of more enforcement. I mean, today we learned about, as we went into the area with the mangroves, about the no-wake signs and the things that you all are about to do to try to preserve that area. What has it been like getting people to now abide by the rules as you attempt to put them in place?
It was a tricky transition. Us as Bahamians, we kind of stuck in our ways. So,
and we believe this our land, we can do whatever we want,
so
right?
if the young me coming around telling some of the people who I grew up around, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that, they kind of revert back to, hey, I was doing this all my life.
Sure.
And then you have those very supportive people who will point out misconduct in the park, or if someone doing something that they shouldn't do, and a lot of people who ain't even connected to interacting with the park or the harbor. So it's a balance, but you always have those people that make things a little bit more difficult than it need to be.
Sure. And why is this important work for you as a Bahamian, but also just important work for the preservation of these parks and the land and the environment?
The Bahamas have a lot of natural resources, and we have a nonchalant nature where we don't really care much about conserving our natural resources, protecting it for the next generation. So having the organization do all of the spearheading for that to happen in the community, and create opportunities for the younger generation, so that because they'll be the one to really live with this new normal. So
sure.
It was pretty interesting.
So I'm always interested in how all of this is even received by our visitors, because tourists are nowadays very interested in ecotourism and how you are preserving and protecting your environment. So what's the response that you get sometimes from some of the visitors?
The visitors, they are very supportive. Most countries already have national park systems, and they know what it is to have active wardens on duty. So they are always compliant to whatever's happening, and most engagements is be very smooth. Mm-hmm. You also have a few that can be a little bit more difficult certain times of the year, but for the most part, majority of them are super supportive.
Okay, cool. So I know that you also undertook a project I can't remember the full name, but where you spoke with some of the elderly people in the community just about what it was like for them and some of the things that they did in trying to preserve the land. What was that project about?
So the Oral History Project.
Yes.
It was
I should have known that, right? Oral History Project.
It was a super exciting project, especially for me with the history growing up on the island and having family on the island, reconnecting with that previous generation and talking about what they did in the area we now call the park. It was pretty interesting with the old names and the density of species, the density and the diversity of species that was around back then. And you know, how that really played a big part on these people's lives. So, you know, touching base with them, some of them family, some of them not. And they would bring up like my family's names associated with different stuff in the harbor. So it was super exciting and it's awesome stuff that I hope the average Bahamian could get opportunity to experience.
So we're going to be able to see that or to hear that or to read it eventually. So we learn a little bit more about the history of the area as well, I take it.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Good stuff. Do you get personal satisfaction as a Bahamian being able to do this and to be able to protect this every day?
Most certainly. How could you not? Exuma is associated with the most beautiful beaches of the Bahamas, and I don't mean the...
You can say it. We've been saying it all week. That's fine.
So just to be out here and experience it for myself, because even though we live at a close proximity to the park or to these beautiful natural resources, it's not often that a Bahamian would have an opportunity to go and experience these stuff recreationally. So, you know, after seeing it firsthand, I just was like, wow, I really want the next generation and, you know, people in my age bracket or not to really experience the beauty of it. And I feel it'll, you know, ignite their passion in protecting it and preserving it. So
people hear about a protected area or a national park and they may think, well, it's off limits. Can Bahamians just come, whether they're on their own or can they come on a tour and just experience all of this?
Yes, definitely. It's an open park. You could come into the harbor and interact recreationally with the park. We currently going through a zoning process, so access could be limited. In some areas, you might can't do certain activities, and in other areas, you might can't do no activities because, you know, traditionally, park systems are usually no-take, but this park system have a unique relationship with the community where we want to preserve the historical value and the traditional access or value. So it's going to be a pretty unique experience because of the park being so close to most of the communities on the eastern side of the island.
Sounds good, my brother. Keep up the good work.
So likewise.
Yeah, man, I appreciate what you are doing for country. You're a young Bahamian and you're involved and you're preserving it for future generations, and that's a big step. And I think it's important we recognize that that heroes are not people who are far away from us, but they are amongst us every day and they're doing great things. And you know, the work that you all do here really, for me, makes you our local heroes. So thank you very much.
I appreciate it, man.
Moriah Harbour Key National Park is more than just a protected natural space. It serves the community in profound ways environmentally, culturally, and historically. From safeguarding delicate ecosystems to preserving cultural traditions, this park is truly a gem for Exuma and the Bahamas at large. To explore what this park represents on a broader scale, we cooled down with Senior Communications Officer Udaijah Sands, who's no stranger to On the Record. Udaijah shared with us what Moriah Harbour Key means not only to the local community, but also to the Bahamas National Trust as an organization.
There are few places in the world that provide this kind of backdrop and background. We are in the waters right here at Stocking Island. Udaijah has so graciously agreed to facilitate this trip and this view of the BNT and what you all are doing here in Exuma. So first of all, I have to say thank you for really suggesting we come and do this. It has been a journey of exploration for me and for the team. We have learned just a tremendous amount of information, and I trust that the audience has gotten that as well. But, you know, I want to put it all into perspective now and talk about what this means for the BNT and how this particular system of parks fits into your overall mandate and what you do.
Yeah, so of course, we're always happy to have our news and on the record team with us at the BNT. Finally got you to a family island, very excited to do that.
You make it seem like you didn't even come to the island, man.
But with us.
What do you want? Yeah.
We're excited to have you with us in Great Exuma, in a very beautiful place. People call it Exuma the crown jewel of the Bahamas, and I think the Moriah National Park certainly protects the most beautiful parts of Great Exuma. And so, like you would have learned during your stay, this park was established in 2002. So it was a part of a larger declaration from the governor of the Bahamas, where we protected a lot of new areas in the Bahamas and essentially doubled the size of the national park system. And I think this was a beautiful addition to the national park system. This was a park that was driven by community and driven by the community's efforts to see a part of their Exuma protected. So as you've seen, it's a really beautiful national park. It's very scenic, incredible landscapes, but also plays a very, very important role in terms of protecting the environment and in protecting the species, and also just protecting a part of the Exumas that is so rich in terms of biodiversity.
So in addition to the protection of the parks, protection of the environment, I know that you all are also very focused on the conservation and the protection of or more so the protection of quite a few species in the area. So I want to talk to you about two in particular that you put a lot of emphasis on here.
Okay, so yeah, the Moriah National Park and the BNT on Great Exuma do have a lot of initiatives or projects focused on protecting very specific species. Moriah National Park protects a lot of habitats, and we do have some very important, special, and threatened species here. So Moriah protects a lot of marine environments. So of course, we have a lot of healthy coral reefs in the area. If you get in the water at Fowl Key or some of the more outlying reefs, it's very beautiful. And nowadays, where coral reefs are dying, all over the country and all over the world from things like ocean warming and just diseases and hurricanes, to go somewhere and see living, healthy coral reefs like you see here is such a blessing, especially when it's so accessible. We also protect incredible seagrass meadows, and we have a project dedicated to that in the moorings. But then some of the key species here is a lot of birds. There's a lot of birds that nest here in Moriah National Park on a lot of the kind of outlying keys and outlying islands. So you'd go, and during the summer you see a lot of nesting white-crowned pigeons, very important game bird to us here in the Bahamas, and a lot of shorebirds. And in the summertime, we also have seabirds that come from sea and nest on some of our islands. So on Harbour Key, if you go in the summertime, you'd see hundreds of least terns and other terns that come build their nests. They're really cute birds. They just come and build their nests, and they raise their young in this national park. And so the park protects a lot of habitat for these species that depend on healthy dune systems and healthy environments. Another really important species that you'll learn about when you visit the Moriah National Park is the central Bahamian rock iguana, which is a critically endangered species. And the reason why it's a special species for this park is the story of how it got here. As far as we know, the iguanas were never really historically found here in these parts of Great Exuma. They were originally found on a key further south in the Exuma chain, but in 2014, during, routine airport operations, UK Border Patrol discovered 14 iguanas inside the luggage, 13 iguanas, sorry. Discovered 13 iguanas inside of the luggage of 2 Romanian nationals that were traveling through the Bahamas. So they smuggled these iguanas from their original home. And again, these are critically endangered species.
Wow.
So at that time, it was only a few hundred in the wild. They successfully left the country, clearly, and they were intercepted in Heathrow Airport. And so Border Patrol arrested the tourists, and they figured out that they came from the Bahamas, and so the process began of, okay, how do we get these iguanas back home? This was in February of 2014, so not that long ago. And so, unfortunately, one of the iguanas did succumb to the stressful travel because the iguanas were individually wrapped in socks and stuck in the suitcase. So it was not fun. It was a pretty long flight. So one iguana did succumb to the injury, but they were successfully, intercepted. Right. And so the British nationals actually kept the iguanas for a few months and kind of looked after them. And then they were sent back to San Salvador because they thought they were the San Salvador species of the iguanas until some iguana experts looked at the iguanas and discovered they actually came from this small key in the Exuma chain. And so we figured, okay, these iguanas need to be repatriated, so we need to put them somewhere that's close to home. And so at the time, Moriah Habour Key National Park was, again, already established, and the BNT was about to begin operations here pretty soon. And so they were introduced to the park on a key that I shall not name. And we researched, we introduced them to the key. We supplemented that small population, which was about 8 or 9 iguanas at the time, because a few more passed over the months, because they actually only made it back in the country in July. So it was a few months, July that year. So it was a few months of stress for them. And so we introduced them to their key. We brought over a little bit more iguanas to kind of supplement the population. And now those iguanas are thriving in this national park.
Fantastic. That's an excellent story. And kudos to the British as well for, making that effort. So that's a good thing. Also, I know that you all are getting ready to do a few more things when it comes to enforcement. Earlier today, we saw the wardens putting up a sign, advising people of what not to do on a key to protect the bird species and other things that are there. And also in our travels today, we learned that you'll be putting up signs, etc., in some areas to stop some of the speeding boat traffic and other things that humans naturally do without thinking, but also that affect the environment. So I do want to talk about some of the measures that you're going to be introducing to further protect the area.
Right, so the Moriah Habour Key National Park is in a pretty great place in terms of the BNT starting to establish the operations. We have a really great team here now on the ground, and like you mentioned, you've learned about a lot of the programs and projects that are starting to go in place, like the All History Project was a great project for us to learn more about the area and to be able to use that information for educational purposes and interpretive purposes, but also some of the things that are core to park management, which is what you hear about the zoning a lot, which is essentially just working with the community to figure out, okay, what can we allow in this park and where? Some of these areas are really sensitive. For example, like the key with the iguanas, like no one should be, visiting that key. But some of these areas, we still want people to come and be able to utilize certain resources, like, the silver thatch palm that people, harvest for the straw industry. And so the zoning process is essentially working with the community and working with other partners to basically kind of separate the park into different areas that will allow different things. And of course, the Moriah Habour Key National Park does have a management plan, which is basically the big guiding strategic document that dictates how the BNT manages these areas from a science, community, education, and natural resource management perspective. So there is a management plan in place for Moriah Habour Key National Park, and with the BNT now ready to introduce its new strategic plan, which will basically guide how the BNT operates for the next 5 years. The Moriah Habour Key is certainly one of the priority parks in that strategic plan for management, for strategic and sustainable development, and for community conservation.
Elijah, thank you very much. This is our second BNT show, and every time we do these shows, it's an immersive experience. We're in the water, or we're in the bush, or we're in a combination of both. But that aside, it's always a learning experience, and coming here and seeing everything that you guys are doing, it really lets me know that this is an organization that is really focused on preserving the environment. And I know that a lot of what you do is based on public funding, and I hope that when people are watching this, they get an appreciation for what you do, but more importantly, they understand the importance of giving and to assist you guys whenever you have the fundraiser. So, thank you again for inviting us to come and facilitating all of this. It's been a great few days for us here. Everybody in the office is jealous because they think we were just vacationing and on boats and in the water, and we used to doing that. I a lot, but it's been such a learning experience. But thank you so much, and we look forward to the next adventure. I heard you telling some people that you want to make me a certified diver.
Yes, I will ensure that hopefully the next adventure gets you underneath the water.
I'm gonna pray for you. Thank you very much. Stay with us. We're gonna have some closing thoughts in just a moment here on the Record. For the past 65 years, the Bahamas National Trust has been at the forefront of preserving and conserving our environment. The work that they do every day and the work that the people who are involved with this organization do every day will help to preserve the Bahamas and this beautiful environment for decades to come. And we certainly hope that this show has given you a better appreciation for what they do, and certainly engenders a spirit of support in you for them. So the next time the BNT calls, please answer, because it is up to us to ensure that we keep this as beautiful and clean and pristine as it is now for many generations to come. So again, thank you to the BNT for facilitating us. Thank you to all of our partners who've helped to make this show happen. Thank you to my fantastic crew who has put up with me over the past few days on this journey. I want to thank you very much. And to you, our audience, I hope that this has been as fulfilling for you as it has been for us. So until next time, from beautiful Exuma, I'm Jerome Sawyer. This is On the Record. We'll see you again soon.